Well, I've been told that you still have to sign something.
Oh,
I'm at high enough
Usually mine
charge right
dies
I was
like
complaining
15.
about.
Good. All right. I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the MSAD 51 Board of Directors meeting for, what's today? September 8th, 2022. So first item on the agenda is recognition, which I'm going to hand over to Jeff.
All right, tonight we'll be recognizing the girls lacrosse state champions for their great season last year. And we have Coach here, and I think some of the members of the team are here. So I'd just like to ask them to come up to the podium and the mic, and I think they have some words of wisdom for us about a team that can go all the way. Yep, and the podium is right over there. So Coach Kolker and
Okay, let's hold on for one moment.
Trying to get you to be the champion.
Go great.
Yeah. Interesting.
Your jobs are so good. This is not awkward at all. I don't know what you're gonna say, Coach. I have no idea.
Good? Should I start the whole thing over? No, we don't need to do that, do we? Okay. All right, take it away.
Good. All right. So, didn't know I was speaking tonight, but thank you guys so much for having us and for honoring our team. It was such a special season, obviously, the ending, but also a really special group that we went through the whole season with. From the very beginning, when COVID things were still pretty unsettled, to the very end, where it felt like it was getting back to normal with just being together, and we didn't have to focus on some other things. But it was such a great group. They worked so very hard. And it was the most selfless group I have ever coached. And we had one senior and all the rest were underclassmen. So hopefully we'll be back again next year. So, go Greeley.
Nobody else wanted to speak? Congratulations, guys. I watched that final game. That was a lot of fun, especially the second half. That was awesome. Okay, so moving on to approval of minutes. I think unfortunately we have to do these separately. I did notice a couple of edits. The July 18th meeting, Jeff, had adjournment by people that are no longer here, Peter and Kevin, so I think that was like a copy and paste issue, so.
Yep, we will fix that.
Okay, any other edits for the July 18th meeting? So I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Was that Mike?
Mike and Vanessa, thank you. Yeah. Oh, he is? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, let me finish this vote and then we'll go back. Okay, all right, discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay, all opposed?
So do I abstain on that, Jason? I wasn't
Yep,
at that
anybody that
meeting.
wasn't here, you can abstain. Yep,
Anyone
Avery.
else?
Abstain.
Avery and Tom and Jared.
I think
Yep, okay. All right, sorry about that, Steve, I didn't know about that. Please, take it away. I'm back. Yes, good.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to you and to members of the board and to members of the district who are here tonight for the meeting. I think you probably have an indication as to why I'm here. I'm Steve Moriarty, currently state representative for House District 45, which consists of Cumberland and the southern part of Gray. And you've just heard words from the coach of the Greeley girls lacrosse team, and I'm here to present a legislative sentiment, which is the legislature's way of conveying its appreciation and recognition of unique and noteworthy accomplishments here at the local level. It's a somewhat formal document, and it's been my greatest pleasure in serving you in the House to be able to occasionally come before the school board and make presentations of this type and to recognize the extraordinary talent that we have here in the district. A legislative sentiment is a somewhat formal document, comes in a binder. It will be presented to the coach for display here at the school for years to come. So I will read it to you tonight. And bear with me for the somewhat formal nature of the language, but that's how it's prepared. Be it known that we, the members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, join in recognizing the Greeley High School girls lacrosse team of Cumberland, which won the state Class B championship, the team's first state title, by defeating York High School in the final game. Coached by Becca Kolker and led by co-captains Carly Ferencz, Allie Reed, and Charlotte Taylor, the team compiled an impressive 10-2 record in the regular season. Team members include Jane Flynn, Lauren Bennon, Kylie Crocker, Jenny Medrano, Maggie Jacobson, Katie Dubert, Asya Kelman, Elise Provencher, Katie Hatch, Maddie Hall, Rachel Goldberg, Eva Williams, Daphne Campo, Kylie Lord, Annie Flick, Whitney Bond, and Addison Babcock. We extend our congratulations and best wishes for your extraordinary accomplishment. And be it ordered that this official expression of legislative sentiment be sent forthwith on behalf of the 130th state legislature and the people of the state of Maine. And this is signed by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, and was introduced by myself and co-sponsored by the entire legislative delegation for Cumberland and North Yarmouth. So to the team members, the coach, the parents, and the entire MSAD 51 community, I'm very, very proud to be able to present to you this sentiment for your championship.
You don't have to speak again if you don't want to. Thank you, Steve. Sorry, I apologize. I didn't realize you were here for that. Thank you for speaking up. Okay, so back to more minutes for August 11th. That one I don't have any edits. Does anybody else have any edits? All right, so do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, discussion. All in favor?
Abstain.
Okay, and opposed and abstaining. There must be a few abstentions. Tom, Mike, Tommy, Leanne. Okay. All right. Moving on to August 22nd, which also had the same adjournment thing, which I think was a copy and paste, and that's not accurate. So I think that was copied and pasted from the last meeting. So we had more than 5 people there. Any further edits on that one? Okay, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Who did that? Somebody. I'm going to take Tom, 'cause I didn't know who said it. Okay. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? All abstain? Unanimous, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to public comment. If there's people here that would like to speak, please come up to the mic and state your name and speak.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shauna Mueller. I'm a parent in the district of a 5th and a 6th grader. And I am here because I had a conversation this afternoon with the chair who graciously offered a few minutes of his time, and I wanted to share that with the rest of the board. I had inquired about potentially serving on one of the board committees and did not know what the process was for being considered for that appointment. I learned in talking with both the superintendent and the chair that the chair has authority to make those appointments. And I just wanted to say what I said to the chair about that. I'm hopeful that going forward, and I think this has been a longstanding practice, I think going forward it makes a lot more sense to at least advertise, if not have a process in place to allow for people to request to be placed on committees. I'm particularly interested in the equity committee, but there's lots of other committees that I think are treated in this fashion. I think in the interest of equity, having that kind of a process is important. And so I just wanted to share that with the rest of the board and also to thank the chair and the superintendent for their time today. Thank you.
Thank you. Others?
I am Katie Mae Simpson. I live in Cumberland on Sturbridge Lane. 2 kids, middle school. Thanks to the board and to all the teachers and the administration for a long haul through COVID. And I know it's not over, but really appreciate your time and effort, and thank you all for serving. Based on what Shauna said, I'm updating my comments on the fly here, but I also was here to speak about the openings that I understood were coming up on the equity committee and express interest in being part of that process, putting my name in the ring. Potentially, I know some other folks who have some interest in serving. I am curious about the process of filling those positions and whether they've all been filled or not. If not, I'd be eager to apply and or invite others in the community to apply. And I'm really particularly interested, I don't actually care that it's me, but I'm interested that the people on the committee actually care about equity and see that that work continue and be followed through on. I think seeking any sort of I guess I'm just most interested in making sure that the folks on the committee share that value and would sign off on wanting that committee to actually exist, rather than putting people on the committee who maybe don't think the committee should exist. That would be my biggest concern. Finally, I guess I'm just going to stand here until hopefully someone can explain what the process is to apply for a committee.
I'll do my best. So the Equity Committee is no different than any other committee as far as process goes, and that's spelled out in a policy that has been around for a while, policy BDE, which basically when you're on a committee, you're on the committee for a year, and then all committees are rebuilt every year. And that does come down to the decision of the chair. So this is not something that I've taken lightly. I started this process back in July, asking the board members here to weigh in on not only what they wanted, what their skill set was and is, and also candidly, you know, who they thought, you know, would be good in other committee places. So I chewed on this pretty much for the entire summer. The weight of this is tremendous, and my biggest worry was Equity Committee and the passionate feelings around that. You can't please everybody, I'm sure of that. And the new school committee was also a big stressor for me. So I spent probably cumulatively 6 or 7 hours speaking to all the people up here. They gave their opinions, their desires, and I had to blend that with their skill set, the history of me knowing them working on this committee and board, our interactions for the new members over the last 2 months, and I had to blend that all with trying to balance everything for the 2,200 kids and families in this community. So the parents that are on that committee are people that reached out to me on their own this summer. Yes, you can put out a poll and you can ask everybody that wants to be on a committee. I find that myself a little less compelling than people that take it upon themselves to reach out. The chair and or co-chairs of that committee, the Equity Committee specifically, I have great faith will not divert from the mission. I think that they will make sure that the groups that we need to support the most are supported, and also things will move at a pace that the whole of the community can absorb and accept. It's important work. I don't expect it to stop, but I think that it's appropriate that we give the new board members or the new committee members a chance before we tar and feather them and assume that all is not going to go well.
I'm not here to do that. I don't even know who they are. So.
I hear you. Well, I think it's important to get to know them. So I would encourage everybody to do that. Give people the benefit of the doubt. I hear your concerns. I didn't take this lightly.
Well, who are they, I guess, would be my follow-up question.
I don't believe it's been
Well,
announced yet.
yes,
public.
the finalized list has not been
Okay.
released. So the information you're working on is probably accurate, but it's hasn't been released. So
Information I'm working on is non-existent. I'm here to ask what it
that
is.
the committee has been changed, yes. It
Okay.
has been abbreviated. It won't include as many people as it did last year. So that part is accurate.
Okay. Will there be will there be meetings of the committee that the public can attend, that kind of thing?
Yes, all committee meetings, I think,
Yeah,
can
we-
be attended by the public, but it's a meeting in the public. It's not a public meeting. So like even other board members, like last year I went to some equity committee meetings, and you can watch the thing, but you're not part of the meeting. You're
Gotcha.
not a voting member.
Right.
And so everybody that has concerns around this topic, and it's a passionate topic, I would ask them to address things, specifics, and send them to the new committee members and focus on the specifics. And I have no doubt, I've had some great conversations in the last 12 hours, and the differences in people that seem to be from opposite sides are very, very subtle. Everybody seems to have the same goal, and it's just sort of a subtle difference in approach. So
Great. I hope you're right. I'm not here to tar and feather anybody. I'm here to
good.
understand who's on the committee so I can talk to them about it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Katie. Others?
Hi, my name's Eliza Batchelder. I live in North Yarmouth. I have 2 kids in the school district and a third if she can ever sneak onto the bus without us knowing. But I likewise want to echo those concerns. I think it was abundantly clear in June in the elections that the community supports the equity work that the district has been undertaking, and I think it would be really a shame to see that not being followed through on. So, and I would hope for a more open and transparent process in the future for filling those committees.
Thank you. Others?
Jason, I have a quick question. How many committees can the public sit on outside of the equity committee?
Jeff?
Just out of curiosity.
It's been handled different ways.
Okay.
There's one committee, obviously, it's not open to the public, and that's negotiations.
Yeah.
That's the one that's closed. But every other committee, there's been different members placed on committees. We've had students and parents on policy at one point or another. We've had them on curriculum. It just depends. It's really at the discretion of the chair.
Okay.
Yep.
Good evening, Scott Jordan, Cumberland. Just wanted to ask a couple quick questions that was brought to my attention recently. The first day of school, I was out to dinner, and a couple of students came up on their own and mentioned that on day 1 of school, they were suggested, or told, I should say, by teachers to use their preferred pronouns. I reached out to a couple of junior high students' families, parents, and they said the same thing. Is that a requirement from MSAD 51? Students are to use their preferred pronouns in school?
I'm aware of this. I got some reports of this from day 1. Jeff and I have discussed it, and there is a policy that's been on the books since 2017, policy JB, which is being explored, and that's about all I'll say at this point. Yep. Okay. But there is a policy, JB, that addresses transgender issues. And
Are the students allowed to opt out?
I don't think it's a... Jeff?
If
Yeah.
that may not be the right word, but I think you know what I'm saying.
I don't think it's opt-out. I think the policy spells it out pretty well, and I think I'd ask you, I guess, to give us time to make sure that we understand that policy and are following it. So you can look it up on our website, Policy JB, and read through it yourself, and that's what we will be going by. And just maybe ask you to give us some time to review that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. You want to add anything to that? Nope. Okay. Further public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will close that and get to presentations and why all the principals are here. Thank you. So, yeah, you want to take it away, or somebody starting, or?
Each year, we ask our 4 principals to come before the board at one of their first meetings in September and just talk about the beginning of the school year, how it's opened, and talk about the site improvement plans. Each of our schools and departments in the district have a site improvement plan for the year. They've worked with their building leadership groups to develop this plan. It's aligned to the strategic plan, and I'll be talking about the strategic priorities for the district after the principals talk. But Corey Muncie will lead off for the 4 principals tonight, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Jeff. They always say save the best for last. So when my colleagues nominated me, I took a little bit of offense, but here we are. So first, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to come up and kind of share on behalf of all of the administrators how our school year has started and some things that we're working on. We do appreciate the interest that you take and just sort of the questions that you ask, and we appreciate it. So thank you. I also wanted to start off by introducing the new assistant principal, who some of you may or may not have met, but her name is Mallory Orzechowski, and I practiced that all summer, so I nailed it. But she's up back there, so just give her a wave. And I also wanted to start out by giving a big shout out and a big thank you to Don Foster. We had some construction projects at our school this summer, as we always do, and we redid the office, so it's a lot safer environment for our staff and our students. We did some playground work to expand the fencing at our playground and just a number of other projects throughout the summer, and Don Foster was amazing. He was all over it. I feel like I saw him every single day, and he was really asking, what do we need? How can I help you? What's the next step? So I know Jeff and Scott, you guys were great as well, but Don was definitely there every day, and we really appreciate it. So just a big thank you to Don. Today was the first day for Mabel Wilson where we had all 762 students there. Pre-K started today, and they are the world's, every kid's cute, but they are incredibly adorable when you see them. I need to choose my words carefully, but they are incredibly cute and curious and excited, and just such a great addition to our school, and we're very glad that they're there. We are working through some arrival and dismissal changes, which you may have been aware of, with just the sheer number of students that are getting picked up by their parents, and the amount of just the total number of enrollment. We really had to redesign our entire dismissal procedure. So it's going better. It's not where we want it to be, but I'm sure you will hear, if you hear some questions about it, we're just asking for a couple of weeks to work out all the bugs and the kinks. But generally speaking, our students and our staff are smiling, they're happy, they're really enjoying being back in sort of a more normal type school year, which we are equally as excited about. Our school improvement plan is broken into 2 goals, and under each goal there's a number of areas that we are going to be working on. I'm not going to hit on all of the areas, but just focus on kind of one of the big areas, and I think that's kind of the approach that everybody is taking. So the first goal is really around social emotional learning and support for our students and our staff. The overarching goal is that we want all of our students to feel a sense of connectedness. We want them to feel safe. We want them to have a trusted adult. We really want them to feel like they belong as part of a community. And so a number of quick things, not quick things, but just a quick snapshot of what we're working on. We are continuing the responsive classroom model. This year we are starting for the first time since I've been there sort of monthly school assemblies to work on, again, bringing all of our kiddos together. Staff morale is a part of that. As our staff are happy and well taken care of, they're also able to continue to be highly effective at their jobs. And then Alice training was another piece of that for our staff, just again to help everybody feel safe and connected and supported in our school. The one big area that I do want to talk about under that goal is sort of the parental involvement piece. I think everybody would agree that during COVID that was a huge loss for our school community, and certainly at Mabel Wilson, we have a number of students who are in 3rd grade who their parents kind of never were in our building until late last year, and I think the elementary school in particular in our towns is kind of the heart of a community, and we want our parents in there, and we want to partner with them, and we want them to know what their kids are working on and learning. And so that really is one of our big goals that we're going to be working on this year. So a lot of teachers have already done supply drop-offs. We have an open house coming up. We want volunteers back in our school. We've been working with the PTO on starting again the grand event, which is a huge event, which is wonderful. We hope to do some learning walks throughout our school this year, and just different ways to partner with the community and parents. And we think it's a really, really important piece that was lost during COVID that we want to reestablish. So please be on the lookout for information and to help us support that goal. The second goal is an academic goal, and it's really just ensuring that our students are meeting their learning targets and making growth each year. And again, some quick hits for that is we are fortunate to have our early release Wednesdays, and we're able to utilize those for professional development. We are hoping to do a K through 12 math audit to really look at our math program and to see if it's meeting the needs of our learners. And we have a brand new master schedule this year that really supports some different RTI work, which is very exciting. But the number one thing that I want to talk to you about is we are transitioning to something called the science of reading. And we are one of the few schools in the area that I'm told that are making that shift, and we're one of the first schools. So I am by no means an expert, so I will tell you what I know, and it's sort of a work in progress. One nice thing is as a school, we are all learning this together. But essentially, there have been thousands of studies of ways that students learn to read. And for a long time, it was thought that students learn to read sort of automatically, and it just happened. And the approach that many of us had was sort of like the whole language approach, or the being immersed in a classroom with lots of rich literature. And we now know that's not true, that kids actually learn to read in a very specific way, so A to B to C to D, and there's actually very specific steps, and as a staff we are honing our skills and learning about those steps, and we are already working on some parent information around it and how you can support your students at home, and so it's going to be an ongoing goal for us at Mabel Wilson, but it is one of the key areas that we are learning about to continue to support our youngest learners as they learn to read. And then outside of that, Mabel Wilson has had we have a pretty new staff. I think 40% of our professional staff have been there 4 years or less. That's a rough number, but it's a large number anyway. And so we are going to also take time this year, again, with parents and the community, but also as a staff to work on a 3-year plan. And what are some of the goals and areas and things that we hope to accomplish in 3 years for both, for math, for literacy, for technology? Really, what do we want our youngest learners in our district, where do we want their journey to look like 3 years from now? And so we are going to be taking some time this year to really focus on that and to have lots of conversations and dialogue about it. So that is a quick summary of lots of work that will happen this year, and I will gladly take any questions, or none is fine as well.
Go for it, Mike.
No, I'm not going to let you get away with that, Corey. Sorry.
Thank you.
Just science reading. Can you share more info about that when you get the chance? I'd love to just learn more about it.
Yeah, like you want me to email you some stuff, or absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Cool. I can do that.
The only other thing is just how is it feeling space-wise? How are things flowing? Modulars to building. How does it feel now with everybody here, especially today?
We have a lot of kids and a lot of people in our space, so we make the most of it. And like I said, I think there's lots of smiles, and kids are happy, and staff are happy to be back. But we have 14 classrooms in the middle of our playground, right? So it's even in the best of times, it's cramped, and the hallways are packed, and one group is waiting for another group to get by, and so we are refining some of our processes internally to help with that, but there's a lot of moving parts in our building. So,
Okay.
Corey.
Go ahead, Jared.
Sorry, you about the science of reading program. You mentioned that you're not an expert on it yourself. What was it about the program or the data you read about it that persuaded you that it made sense to adopt?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not a program. So for our program, we use it's called Phonics to Reading, is sort of our tier 1 program. So this summer, I spent a lot of time listening to podcasts and doing research and reading some of the new literature on literacy, and all of them are starting to refer to the science of reading, and it's sort of the literacy movement, I guess, for elementary learners is sort of there's a large body of research now that supports that this is how kids learn to read. And so as a district, we underwent a literacy audit a few years ago, and I think that work was really the foundation for starting the transition to the science of reading. So it's been something that has been at Mabel Wilson we've started to work on for probably the past 3 years, but this is the first year it's sort of been announced and a goal and part of our plan. I think there's been bits and pieces of it along the way. So it's really just the totality of all of the research.
When other schools have adopted it, are there results that are public that you've been able to study that helped to convince you that this was a good path to pursue?
So like I said, there's a lot of bodies of research that have happened in particular around kids and their learning to read. In terms of local schools, we are the first local school that is actually fully adopting it. There are a lot of schools that do the phonics to reading program, which is based on some of the information for the science to reading. But there are studies out of almost every other state that you want to. People don't often study kids in Maine, but Texas and New York and Massachusetts, and there's a lot of kids in a lot of schools that are similar to ours that point to this is how kids learn to read. I'm happy to send some of those along if you'd like. They're riveting.
Go ahead.
So I love the idea of getting the kids connected, getting the parents connected to the schools. That's huge. So thank you for making that a value. I'm curious about where the assemblies will take place, given how many kids. I can't fathom a room. So I'm curious how that you're going to pull that off. And a question about the parents' involvement. Will they still be required to go through the fingerprinting process, as I recall, and will they need to be trained in Alice if they're in the building?
All right, so I'll answer the first two, and then I think Jeff will have to help me with the Alice piece. But so the assemblies is a great question. We don't have any space in our building where we can all come together, and we even explored using the GCA, and that's not large enough for us either. So our plan is to have half of the building together, we'll say kindergarten and first grade, for a number of assemblies, and then second and third grade. So having 2 assemblies on the same day, and then throughout the year rotating those groups. So then kindergarten might be with second grade for a few assemblies, and then with third grade for a few assemblies. So it is definitely not ideal, and it's not what we want to do, but I think it's the only way to make it work. We also explored, if it's nice out, possibly using the amphitheater and coming outside and doing that. So once we get our kids into a good routine and the behavior expectations set, I imagine that we will explore some outdoor spaces as well. And then, yes, any volunteer does need to be background checked and fingerprinted, and central office they process those as fast as they can. So if there is an event or something coming up that you would like to volunteer for, we ask that you get that done. I think it's at least 2 weeks in advance, just to make sure that you're all cleared and ready to go. And then Jeff, in terms of Alice training,
yeah, and I also want to add for the volunteers, we've had a lot of parents starting last spring that started getting their background checks done again because it had been so long they had lapsed. So we redid those for a number of parents who wanted to start volunteering late last spring, and so they're already ready. So we would just tell parents, if you're interested, that's the process. It does take a while. But in terms of Alice, Alice is just something that we're training our employees on. And we will not be fully training our substitutes or our coaches either, just for capacity reasons, but we will be providing some training to coaches and substitutes, but not to volunteers. But all of our regular employees are receiving 4.5 hours of training, and anyone that missed any of the training, if they've been hired since we did it, we will be doing that again either in October or November for new employees.
Thank you.
And any board members that want to jump in on that missed it could jump into those?
If we have room, yeah, we have to keep our groups to 16 or less for practicals.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions of Corey?
I would just want to add one thing. The Alice training, I participated in it at the high school. Thank you very much. Just to see what they were experiencing. And as a teacher, I know how terrifying the whole topic is, but I'm curious, how did the teachers react? Are they generally feeling empowered, or what was your take on it?
So I can speak specifically to the group that I helped train. They were feeling, I think at the beginning they were nervous and they were worried, like everybody was. But then once they went through the training, I think empowered is a great word. I think they feel like they have different options. They still have questions and they still want to learn more and practice Teachers are perfectionists. They want to practice, practice, practice. But I think generally speaking, our staff felt very empowered, and they this makes a lot more sense, and it feels like a very natural way to keep our kids and everybody safe in the event of an emergency. So I think the morale was really good around it at the end, actually, and a big shout out to our Cumberland PD, and I think Jeff gave one already, but Amy Owens did an unbelievable job organizing it and helping lead that, and I think she made our staff just collectively take a deep breath, so it was very helpful.
Good to hear.
Yeah, and I'm just going to let you know, we did put out a survey to our staff, and I'll have that for the board at the next board meeting, the results. So.
Okay. Others? Go ahead, Tom.
Corey, I guess first of all, I'm interested in whatever you have to share about the science of reading, but my question is about transportation. I know that there were a few changes, both with parent drop-off and trying to discourage that this year, and the let-out time for walkers. And then there's also everything that's been going on with busing. Is there anything that you've learned through week one that might inform how the rest of the year is going to go with transportation?
So I think, yes, I think our times are actually already improving, which makes me feel hopeful. We do track the dismissal time, so our walkers get dismissed last now, which is a change in practice, and we do track it every day. And today was a little bit slower than yesterday, but we expected it with the first day of preschool. But we were actually already getting relatively close to our overall goal, and it was only the third or fourth day of school. So I think that we're feeling like we're on the right track. We do know that there's some the walkers are being dismissed last, and we know there's some frustration around that and the timing, but we do feel like it's the safest approach for our kids. We had many conversations last year with Jeff and the police, and we had many unsafe situation with kids sort of darting in front of cars and trying to get to the middle school or get to the high school. And so many elementary schools don't necessarily even allow walker dismissals at our level. And we didn't want to take that approach, so we really do want to support kids who can walk or ride their bike to school, but we also feel like we have to keep them as safe as we can, and the best way to do that is to get as many buses and parent pickups off campus as we can before we release them. So I think we've learned that our idea is working. It's just going to continue to take some time to work out the kinks in it.
Leanne, go ahead.
I just had a quick question around the ALICE trainings again. Is there any special considerations given the portable setup at the school, and obviously the number of students as it relates to the training? I know that, not having everyone in the one building, I don't know if that creates additional challenges.
So as Jeff mentioned, I think the premise of the training is really to use the tools that you have in your space, wherever that space is, whether it's the cafeteria, portable, the office, and so there wasn't necessarily any special considerations given. We did train staff in the portables who are typically out there, just so that was their training environment. But generally speaking, I think it's about being aware of your surroundings and kind of knowing where the exits are and knowing what you have available wherever you are. So,
great, thank you.
Okay, others? Okay, thank you, Corey.
And Carol MacArthur, principal of 4-5, is next.
I think they were clapping for me, Corey, not you.
It's true.
Thank you for the introduction. It's always a great feeling to welcome our students back into a new school year, and this one in particular because it already feels more familiar to the days of old. Despite jumping back and forth between indoor and outdoor recess procedures the first few days of school, the school year actually has started off really quite smoothly. Even some of the bumps that we've experienced seem insignificant compared to some of the things that we've run into the last couple of years, so that's promising. Our first school improvement goal is emotional well-being. We know that students' academic performance is improved when they feel safe, valued, and a sense of belonging in their classroom and their school community. Last year, many students demonstrated lagging skills in their social interactions, which led to challenges with students making safe, responsible, and respectful behavior choices, and also struggled with their sense of accountability. So as a part of our master schedule this year, we have allocated an extended time for community building and social emotional learning. We're going to continue to implement restorative practices and trauma-informed practices. And we're using a framework that was developed by the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, more commonly known as CASEL, to deliver a more coordinated and intentional effort, as well as having shared language across our settings. So staff spent some time during our professional learning days, and will continue to have time throughout the year to plan how they'll incorporate the core competencies of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making into their daily work with our students. Our second school improvement goal is academic improvement. For the second year in a row, we have an extended math and reading block to support teachers having time to provide meaningful instruction in the core curriculum at the Tier 1 level, and then targeted intervention at the Tier 2 level. We're ensuring that our assessments like universal screeners, common classroom assessments, and progress monitoring tools are all providing us with actionable information. And we'll use our professional learning time to analyze our student data and collaboratively plan timely and responsive instruction. We're also returning to our work from a few years ago around high-impact teaching strategies to be able to maximize our instructional time with our students. So we're looking forward to a great school year that remains focused on students' social, emotional, behavioral, and academic growth and development. I'm really excited to be leading this work. I think it's really meaningful, and we have an incredibly collaborative, cohesive, and supportive staff who really like to dig into the challenges that we put in front of them. So I'm looking forward to that work. And what our students most care about, this is what we talk about with the adults, but what our students most care about is that next Wednesday, Lou the therapy dog is coming to school. Right, Sydney? So thank you, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Go for it, Leanne.
You mentioned your progress monitoring tools. Are those the iReadies, or is that something different?
So our iReady are our universal screeners. All students are given that. It gives us a baseline of how they're achieving in math and reading. Progress monitoring tools are really more designed around specific targeted goals. So if you have a student who's struggling with a specific math skill, the progress monitoring tool is designed to sort of measure what it is the student is working on. So they're a little bit more precise, given at a more regular interval, and can be changed up as students achieve goals.
Are there questions? Go ahead, Kip.
Will you also be encouraging parent involvement? I was trying to remember when my kids were 4th and 5th grade. I feel like I was in the classroom now and then.
Definitely. As anyone who's had children who've grown through their middle years, they definitely start to be less inclined to love their parents to be around. But yes, we do use classroom volunteers, for the homerooms. Teachers have different types of, whether it's reading buddies that are adults, or maybe it's clerical support, coming in and volunteering for special projects and things of that nature. We also love library volunteers, art volunteers, and then we do a lot of community building throughout the school, and often tap into our PTO to help bring volunteers in to help us run things like our Project ACES Day and things like that. Yeah, so we're looking forward to it as well.
I'll wear a dog costume.
Perfect.
If that helps with the kids reading to me. Yeah.
Other questions?
I just have one more. Have you had similar staffing? I know Corey mentioned that 40% have been less than 4 years. Do you see similar numbers at 4 or 5?
Actually, I think there are some blessings and curses being so small of 2 grade levels, and I would say one of the blessings is, that just our population in general is smaller. We have, in terms of our classroom teachers, we had very little turnover from last year. We were able to hire on some of our one-year only staff to fill openings. So even people who are technically new aren't necessarily new to the building. So no, we have a lot of veterans amongst our staff. Definitely new people over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, but we're operating with a lot of familiarity.
Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
All right, and Mari Treblecock is up next.
Hi, everyone. So at Greeley Middle School 6-8, we're off and running. Middle schoolers have a lot of energy. Our focus has been on establishing routines and settling into the structure of our new schedule. One major adjustment for all students is that they have lockers again. None of our students in the past 3 years have had them, so it's new for every student, including 8th graders. So all of them are learning the process of working that combination, figuring out what they need to tote to each class, and how frequently they need to visit their lockers in between classes to be efficient with their time. So this is a big executive functioning ask for middle schoolers who tend to be pretty scattered in the first place, but they're doing great and teachers are allocating lots of time for them to be able to do that. Nobody's getting fussed about, I can't figure out my locker, and needing some assistance with that. We've identified 2 goal areas through our site improvement plan for this school year. They're a continuation of what we prioritized last year with some adjustments. So our first goal is centered around meeting the academic needs of our students with responsive, timely, and tailored instruction. And some highlights include a focus on Tier 2 instruction in literacy, math, and behavior, with some creative problem solving on the part of Carol MacArthur, Julie Olson, and myself. We have a new 4-8 behavior teacher who is able, RTI behavior teacher, who is able to provide students who need additional support, for example, identifying expected and unexpected behaviors in social settings with some direct instruction around that. We're also focusing on the 20-minute lesson. We've altered our schedule to streamline what happens from one day to the next, and that has created consistency for our students, which is an excellent thing. But in doing so, we've also increased the number of intervention days in the week, but had to decrease the number of instructional minutes within a given day. So same amount of time overall, more days with interventions, just shorter minutes. So we're being intentional with planning our instruction to maximize the daily and weekly time to hit their skill development pretty hard, because 20 minutes isn't a lot of time. You can either really maximize that time or you can waste that time. So we're really focusing on maximizing that time. Meanwhile, for students who don't need literacy, math, or behavior interventions in a Tier 2 setting, we're providing direct instruction in transferable skills. The example I like to give of a transferable skill that we teach at the middle school is how to write an email to your teacher. And I know that our students are learning that because at the beginning of the year, I'll get an email, yo, Mrs. T. And at the end of the year, it's, dear Mrs. Treblecock, how are you today? I would like to know if X. So they learn how to write more formalized communication to adults to get what they want. And I think that's a life skill. That's just one example. Our second goal is about supporting a healthy community of learners. With this goal, we're continuing our development of our advisory program that we started last year. Advisory meets twice weekly and is focused on building relationships with a core group of students through community circles. This structure lays the foundation for restorative practices, as well as supporting a sense of belonging among our students. And so advisory allows us to do a few things. It allows us to forge relationships with our students, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Because we know a little bit about each other, so we can see them in the hallway and say, hey, how was your game last night? It provides pro-social opportunities for students to forge relationships with each other. And after several years of some isolation, that's really important. And finally, it allows us to attend directly to those who do not feel connected to our school community for whatever reason. We can really hone in on developing relationships with every student in the school. And at the risk of geeking out a little bit too much on this topic, some research has indicated that it's not enough to provide academic support to students. We have to provide personal support as well, because students perceive sound teaching, at least in part, through their teachers' caring behaviors. Not rocket science, but it's important to note it. So finally, we're attending to these goals through our professional learning time. We use some of our time on the PD days before school started to focus on that 20-minute lesson and to plan how we will use our advisory time in the beginning weeks of the school year. This time's incredibly valuable and important for teachers and staff to make meaning of our goals and transform them into action. So that's a brief overview of 6-8. Questions for me?
I do have one question. The increased intervention time, is that because of the lapses in the last few years? You're recognizing that, or what?
It really, I mean, it really isn't. That it's a nice kind of like icing on the cake, but we're really focused on developing our response to intervention programming and have been for a number of years. And with every opportunity, we're looking for ways to provide excellent Tier 1 instruction, but also to develop Tier 2 and Tier 3. Our Tier 3 programming has been pretty solid for several years now, and Tier 2 is where we have room to grow in the immediate sense. So it's kind of happenstance that it's happening right now.
Can't hurt.
Okay, others? All right. Thank you, Mari.
All right, Carl, you're next.
Hi, everybody. My name's Carl Francis, and I'm the new principal at Greeley High School, which is an exciting thing for me. I wanted to thank you all, everybody, educators, community, students, for a great welcome. It's been a really nice first month or so of school, working with educators in the community. It's been educators, students, community, really kind. So I really appreciate that welcome. I've also noticed how fortunate I am to be in this community and in this school. The school has incredible educators working really hard for kids, really hardworking, polite students that want a great education. Resources that are provided by the community, which I haven't seen in other communities, and I think I'm grateful to be a part of that, so thank you. Positive start to the school year. You know, smiling faces, rested faces. Really enjoy getting to know the students. I've been able to say hi to Avery and Tommy in the hallways, which is really nice. Wanted to introduce to you some really strong educators that we have in our building. And the first one is our new assistant principal, which is Jackie Hayes, and she's our AP of Student Services. So Jackie's off to an incredible start. She's got a strong background in working with students and supporting students and really looking at that intervention part and helping the whole student with whatever they need. She's got a lot of experience as a teacher, as a school counselor, and we're really happy to have her overseeing the guidance department, working closely with grades 12 and 10, and really working to support kids in the building. So be fortunate. Feel fortunate to have her. Thank you, Jackie. Don Gray is our other assistant principal. You might remember him. He's put a lot of time and energy into this community as a student and an educator. So we're real happy to have him overseeing our Broad Cove Academy, our students in grades 9, 11, and a lot of really helps me a lot with the daily logistics, attendance assessment, intervention part of the day, which is really helpful. Safety as well. I chose 3 areas tonight to focus on as a really brief overview of what we're doing. the school improvement plan. You can look at, Jeff is going to speak to that in greater detail. But the 3 areas that I wanted to briefly talk about is the first one is the ranger support and advisory time, which is dedicated intervention and support time during the day, a 20-minute block that we have during the school day. And that really is about relationship building, social emotional learning, academic support, really the combination of those 2 days. We alternate maroon days and white days with advisory and intervention days. And that's important to us. We really want to continue to build and strengthen that time. We've dedicated time out of our school day, and that's a lot, right? So we got to get that right. And our educators are feeling strongly about that too. I haven't had a chance to speak to students about their experiences, but we will. So ranger support advisory is something that's very important to us. We're going to get it right. We're going to build an effective system that adds value for our students. RTI, Mari talked about I guess we all talked about it a little bit, academic support for and intervention. We really want to start looking at some data. We have been, but get really good at that. The state assessment now is shifted to NWEAs, and we're really getting to learn about that assessment and learning how to best use that and support our kids to identify areas of need. With a mindset of continuous improvement, we'd really like to look at our support systems that we have in place. We're a strong system, right? We're a strong academic system with all the resources we talked about before. I've noticed that. But you know, there's always room for improvement. So this year we're looking at those systems and reviewing them and really going to make some good decisions about how do we get better. The final thing is collaborative interdisciplinary discussions. Basically mixing it up a little bit and getting different departments, collaborating with different departments, and just talking about teaching and learning, talking about resetting things a little bit and getting past the COVID craziness and talking about kids and curriculum and strategies for the effective instruction in the classroom. So I'll end there. I really look forward to getting to know all of you and the community, and I encourage you to call me, talk to me at any time, any questions you have. Love to talk to you about Greeley High School. Questions for me?
Go for it, Tom.
I was wondering if you could just spend a little time talking about what the dedicated time for student support, like during the day, actually looks like.
I'm learning it, but it really is a 20-minute block of an area of time dedicated to meet students' needs. So, you know, our vision, our goal right now, it's an area that needs improvement, which means it's dedicated time for kids to do academic work that needs to be done in classes, and it's also time for them to collect themselves and prepare for the remainder of the day. I'd say that what we'd really like it to become is an area where students can ask for individual support from teachers and assign themselves to individual teachers for support, have teachers reach out to students and assign them to a specific day and time, or complete an assessment, or maybe it's a small group of targeted students who a teacher identifies through formative assessment that they just didn't quite get it, and they invite 4 or 5 kids back to talk about that content. So before they get to the next class period, they're ready to roll. That's my vision of it. I'm not sure if we're there yet, but that's the idea of the intervention piece, and the advisory piece is just about to get to know each other and have a place in the building where you feel supported and that a teacher knows you really well, and a nice, comfortable place for you to adapt and learn and grow as a student, as a person. So that's the idea behind that dedicated time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Others? Oh, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
So I have a freshman,
Okay.
and he has 3 older sisters who all, when they were at the middle school, were able to take advantage, particularly of the 7th grade focus on executive functioning, which Carol mentioned with regard to lockers and time management and building up their binders, things like that. And so this group of kids, maybe even the sophomores as well, pretty pretty much missed out on that because of COVID. So I realize you probably can't quite speak to this yet, but I'm curious if teachers are taking that into account, if they're going to work with these kids who, the teachers may be used to kids coming to them with those skills from the middle school who aren't now.
Yeah, we haven't specifically discussed that, but I know that our educators are bright and they're paying attention to and want to support our kids. So, there are some kids that come to us with identified need in that area, and when that's identified ahead of time, of course, we have formalized programming to support those kids in that specific area. But I think advisory time is a time that teachers could dedicate to their academic programming of kids and review their classes and their areas of need and areas of their struggle and how to organize themselves and support themselves. So that's something we will look through advisory, but I think our teachers are all over it. So the teachers are able to identify those that are coming prepared to class, those who are able to take notes properly, those are prepared for assessment and doing well on the work in the classroom, and they're not, conversations about why. And then from there, we can start to identify some specific students that might to enhance those skills. Instead of doing a blanketed approach, it's probably identify those students who need that support is how I'm thinking that would happen. I hope I answered that question okay.
Great. Like I said, I know you're new, so it's something you'd be able
visionary
to
stuff
just
too,
yet, yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
Others? Go ahead, Tommy.
Well, I'm very glad that you're doing more of the Ranger support time. I always have enjoyed using that for meeting with teachers and getting extra help when needed. But in terms of advisory and the specific curriculum with that, are there any big changes that you're looking to make, or more just kind of honing and making the specific lessons more directed and useful for the students?
Well, there's a graduation credit associated with it, so we're going to need to still have some of those lessons. We have a advisory committee of educators that really spend a lot of time working on that. We'd love to have some student voice on what that looks like. And I'll ask you maybe some of those bodies of students who are the best to ask for that. To me, it's a combination of both. I don't think the whole time could really be spent on that content. I think it's important that you're doing team building, that you're collaborating with peers, that you're doing some, buddy advisory activities, that we mix it up a little bit and enjoy our time a little bit there and have some team building time as well. So that's my hope for that time, but I'm certainly open to hear what your suggestions are. We're just getting started on a school-wide evaluation of that and have some conversations and collaboration around what's going to be the most effective way to use that time. So your input's going to be important.
Tommy, do you have specific suggestions that you're thinking of?
No, I was just wondering if you had anything in mind coming into it. But I would say that I also agree that just having time to kind of rest and recharge before your other classes is definitely important as well.
Thank you.
Go for it, Avery.
How do you think you're going to achieve those goals in 20 minutes a day?
I noticed that time block. I did. And I would say over time. And one thoughtful conversation at a time. Right, so that's my answer to you, Avery. But it's a tall ask, right? So it's a tall ask to have, the last thing I'm going to do on my first time speaking publicly is talking about a schedule change or something at the high school. So it's really not what I'm not interested in doing. But I need to grow and learn about the school and the true areas of need. And if that is something that surfaces, I'm open to take that on if we need to.
Good. Yeah,
Just to follow up on what you just said, so what do you mentioned true areas of need. How are you going to work to identify those, being new in the district?
Yeah, again, I'll go back to one thoughtful conversation at a time. So I'm spending a lot of time in my first few days meeting and talking to people. I've identified, I set standing meetings with my instructional leadership team members, which represent the entire school departments, and we're meeting monthly for regular conversations about progress and areas of need. I have strong assistant principals and so far, the staff seems to be very communicative. They really are looking for improvement in some specific areas. So they've been vocal. They've been vocal to tell me and identify some things, and a lot of those things have been already identified in our improvement plan. We met this summer as in a leadership team and really identified that and talked about that. But it's not realistic to really tackle them all at once. I think, and I have the support of the superintendent by saying that it's important to address them, but we really need to get in there and feel it and understand it and learn it before we make any substantive changes to the system, because we're doing a lot of great things here, right? So there's a lot of positive things happening in our school, in our district, and a lot of our elementary and middle school students are coming to us very strong. So there's a lot of positive things happening, but I get your point, and I'll stay right on top of identifying those areas in need and balancing that with reality of how to accomplish them.
Others? Okay, thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
I'm always so impressed when our principals and administrators come in, and makes me feel very confident. I appreciate you all coming. Okay, so Jeff is next.
They don't need the wave, but we're going to let our administrators leave so that they can get up in the morning and do it all over again. So, thank you to our leadership team, our wonderful group of people, our principals, assistant principals, directors in our district, great group, and really we've started the year off, as many of them mentioned, on a great note, really smooth start to the school year. So I'm going to be taking what all of the four principals talked about and moving it into a more of a macro level, and just kind of giving you that piece so you can think about the pieces that each principal has talked about and how that fits into our district plan. So obviously we start with our district's mission statement, what we do, which is rooted in our mission, to guide all students as they acquire enthusiasm for learning, assuming responsibility for education, achieving academic excellence, and discovering and attaining their personal best. And when we meet with new teachers, new staff to the district, this is actually the very first or second slide that I put up at orientation for all of our new employees, is our district's mission statement. And then we go back later, meeting with all the new teachers in the district, and actually pick apart these words that are in maroon and talk about what those really mean. This is also a question that's asked of all finalists for teaching jobs in our district. Supporting the vision, I won't read all of these, but basically the vision of our district is to make sure that our students are prepared for the 21st century, and that is not just a cliche, but actually they are, that they have the skills to be successful. We know that students will change jobs. Tommy and Ava will probably have 8 to 10 jobs as research by the time, believe it or not, by the time that you are ready to retire. That's just the way the millennial pieces, and I've actually done presentations on millennialism and how it's different from folks of my generation, and just how things have changed. Aligning to the strategic plan. So our strategic plan is the same one we had in 2018. It was supposed to have been sunsetted in 2021. However, by extension, the board annually has extended that to 2023 as a result of you-know-what. We won't say the word, but we know something happened in the last 2 years. So our strategic plan has 4 areas: skills for the 21st century, wellness, early childhood education, in every student college and career ready, and I'll go into that a little bit more. The board adopted the current strategic plan, as I mentioned, in 18, and in 2020, the board at that time put the strategic plan on hold due to something. And in 2021, the original strategic plan expired, was supposed to expire, and the board chose to extend it at that time at my recommendation to 2023. And then the board will have to make a decision in June of 23, and I'll put a recommendation before the board at that point based on what the leadership team and I have discussed, and the board can make a decision on what you'd like to do at that point. So goal one, strategic priority for this school year is wellness. Obviously, we're tying them to those 4 foundational goals that we have. Promoting wellness initiatives that advance and sustain healthy, balanced, and well-rounded students and staff. And we've got 2 areas, and you've heard some of the principals talk about these areas in different ways. Obviously, safety and around the ALICE approach to safety, and I'll talk a little bit more about ALICE in a couple of minutes. And then belonging and connection. I think you heard every principal talk about belonging, connection in ways that they'll be doing that. By the way, we do have, and as of today, or maybe it was yesterday, we have a brand new page on our web page. We've been making a lot of adjustments to our website. We have a new website that's been around for about a year now, and we do have a new page, and on that page we have materials around our safety approach. Obviously nothing that would be compromising, but this is just high-level summary information. There's information on ALICE, there's information on the summary of our emergency management plan, which is undergoing changes, and we'll be adding to this page, and then the members of our safety and security team. So if you go to district and go under safety and security, you'll find that information. So strategic goal 2 for the year, early childhood education. This is really focusing on, which it has been since 2018, what do we do with enrollment? You heard Corey talking about enrollment challenges, obviously at Mabel Wilson School. This is nothing new. This is the year when the board will be asked to make a decision, actually in less than 2 weeks, on the 19th, as to whether or not you support sending a bond to the voters on November 8th. So this is the timeline. We have a joint meeting on Tuesday night, the SAD board and both town boards, at 6 o'clock on the 13th to discuss the primary school project. The financing plan will be the major topic of discussion that evening. September 19th is when the board is being asked whether or not you support sending the bond to voters in November. And then there'll be 2 public information sessions if the board votes to do that on September 27th and October 12th. 1 session in each of our 2 towns. And then November 1st is not the date. It's November 8th, and I will change that. And we also have a page on our website for the new school project. If you'd like to check that out, any member of the public can do that. And the other piece around strategic goal 2 is that we are starting right now the renovations for windows, doors, and HVAC systems at the Wilson School, and that was approved by voters in June. So thank you to voters for your support on doing that. That's $1.5 million. Half of it is free money from the state, and the other half is low interest. So strategic goal 3 for this year, every student college and career ready. Again, you heard the 4 principals referencing different areas of this particular goal. What should students learn? There's 4 basic questions. What do students learn? How do we know they're learning it? What do we do when they're not? And what do we do when they've already got it? And that's all research-based. And we don't like to get too researchy here, but everything we do is grounded in some sort of research. These are all clickable links. This will be on our website, and the public can go to these. These are the individual site improvement plans for the district. At your next meeting on the 19th, Julie Olson, Susie Robbins, and Scott Poulin will be here to talk about the district SIPs that they oversee, in addition to the 4 schools that you heard tonight, so that there's alignment to the strategic plan. And finally, strategic goal 4, skills for the 21st century, skills for life. This goal has been tweaked, and we're asking you tonight to approve these strategic priorities for the year. And so by extension, you're approving the changes, and there are changes in this particular goal from 2018. And part of it is that the relevance of the goal in 2018 was not here in 2022, so we tweaked it. And now reads, students require portable and transferable skills. You heard Marie talk about that, and then the other principals referenced that as well. To be successful in the 21st century, together we can redesign what it means to be a Greeley graduate. This is the part that was tweaked, who leads the way. Portrait of a Graduate is something that many high schools in the nation are now undertaking that planning process around what does a graduate from a high school look like? What does it mean to go through our district and to graduate from a high school? What are the skills, the transferable skills? What are the content skills that students need to be effective? And these 5 that you see in front of you are actually from the state of Maine. So the work is actually done for us. And clear and effective communicator, self-directed and lifelong learner, creative and practical problem solver, responsible and involved citizen, integrative and informed thinker, and that encompasses a lot of the work in our district. For example, equity work comes under responsible and involved citizen. How do you go about doing that work? How do you go about being a good citizen? And those are pieces that you also heard reference from the 4 principals tonight. So next steps in the strategic priority process, these were also introduced on August 26th to the entire MSAD 51 staff, and I'd like to thank Jason for actually opening the all-staff meeting on August 26th. We had all of our staff in the auditorium for the first time in 3 years, 3 school years, all together in one room. It was impressive. We also had all of our support staff. We don't always have all of our support staff in the same room. That's our transportation, food service, custodians, maintenance, and our district office staff all on one place with our teachers and our educational technicians and our specialists. So we had over 400 people in that room, and it was exciting. On September 8th, which is tonight, obviously I'm presenting these priorities for your approval, and the principals obviously already talked about their SIPs, and on the 19th, you'll hear from the 3 district level administrators as well. And on January 17th, I will provide a mid-year progress update on the strategic priorities that hopefully you will decide to approve tonight. And on June 5th, I will provide the board a year-end progress report on those 4 priorities if you approve them tonight. And then again, I will ask the board on June 5th to go ahead and make a decision about what the strategic planning process will look like in the future after this year. And I'll make a recommendation at that time. So those are the next steps in the timeline, and those are the proposed strategic priorities for 2022-23. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions of Jeff? I think we've seen this a couple of times now.
I will say the board also had a chance to hear that this is not the first time they've heard this. You've heard this at the retreat, so it's been a few weeks since you've first been introduced to this.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. I don't know if Mike, did you have a question, Mike? Or okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to give the public the impression that we don't care about this stuff, but we did have a fairly robust conversation a couple weeks ago.
Really
about all of
robust.
this.
It was very
went
robust.
till 11, I think.
5 hours on August 22nd, yes.
Yes, just so the public knows, it was 10:56, I think, is when we clocked out. So it was a very long discussion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving down the agenda for 2 items for action, we have 3 approvals for professional positions, and if there's no objections, I'll take a motion for the group of them, and then we can have Jeff go through them.
Motion. Yep. I motion to appointments to professional positions as recommended by the superintendent.
Thank you, Vanessa. Second?
I'll second.
Anne, thank you. Okay, Jeff, you want to take us through these quickly?
We have 3 professional positions we're recommending tonight. The first position is an occupational therapist, which will be at the Mabel I. Wilson School, and this is a new position because we have, as you know, we have a number of educational technician vacancies in our district, and this was a way for us to think differently about the programming that we are providing in our FLS program at the Wilson School. And instead of hiring 2 educational technicians that are vacant, we are hiring a professional staff member, which is an occupational therapist, to assist in that program and also other needs in the school, but primarily be working with students in the FLS program. Julie Olson and the leadership team and myself have been talking a lot about different ways to fill vacancies in our district, and we feel like this was a really good fit. We had some great applicants for 2 of our OT positions that we ended up posting, and so that's the first one. The second one is also of the same thinking, that we're trying to put some other professional staff into our programs. This is our program at the high school, again in FLS. We had 20 applicants for both of these positions. We looked at the pool of 20 applicants for both of these folks that are being hired. We did have someone leave an ed tech position, and then we took another position and put those together and to come up with this professional position. Again, supporting primarily the FLS program and other support special education programming at the high school. And then the third position is MIW special education position, and again, we're looking at our vacancies and with educational technicians, and decided after discussing it that it made more sense to bring in a professional level teacher in the district to start looking at the way that we are staffing our schools in special education. So we felt this was a good fit, and we were able to hire a really dynamic person. Actually, all 3 of these people were very fortunate to have in our district, and we had again 20 applicants for that position, and we interviewed one person that we really stood out, and then we actually ended up interviewing 3 people out of the pool of 20 for the occupational therapist positions. So it really should have said 3 of 3 on the first one, and it's a little confusing because we advertised one of the OT positions. We went back and advertised for a second one. We had a pool of 20 to draw from, and ended up going in that direction. So we ended up advertising it 2 different times. So you'll see those numbers the way they are.
Okay. Questions of Jeff? Okay. I think that 20 number is very encouraging.
That was our initial number when we put it out there.
Yeah. And all 3 of these, or just the MIW one? This one position is sort of filling 2.
We're covering more than one ed tech position. In
Yeah.
some cases, 2 or 3, depending
Nice.
on the position.
That seems smart.
Jason.
Tom.
So, Jeff, with that many applicants, was there any potential at all to recommend them for other positions that are open in the district?
We actually talked about that. Falmouth is doing the same thing that we're doing, so a lot of those applicants were also going to possibly Falmouth, and we know that they hired some out of that pool. Actually, we just talked today, Julie and I were talking today, is there another applicant in that pool that we should go back to and think about a different program? So Julie's going to think about it, and we're going to get back together tomorrow.
Great.
So.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. All right. All in favor? And opposed? And abstaining? Unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay. So moving down the list here. So the next item is approval of the primary school building committee plan?
No.
Or the committee itself?
Yeah, the phases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before staffing the committee, we have to form the committee. And I'm happy to go through this. Again, we talked about it at the retreat, and you can shoot holes in what I'm envisioning at this point if you want. Jeff finally helped me get my head around the phases of the new school building. And so for those playing along at home, pre-referendum, we already have our concept design, which at this point isn't going to change a lot. It can change in the future a bit, but we have that locked down more or less. And pre-referendum now, it's all about communicating to the community and to the public, answering the questions, really kind of a marketing and PR phase. So that's phase 1. And as I think you guys have already seen in the draft of the committees, which this is not formed yet, but I'm envisioning that I will be a coordinator or chair, but I use that very loosely, coordinator of this committee, and will lean heavily on our 3 vice chairs. And the first phase of the program or the project really aligns with one of those vice chairs, which will be Kim, who seems to be excited about doing marketing. So she will carry the ball on that first phase. And then the second phase being post-referendum through like groundbreaking. So you could call that, you know, the structural phase where, you know, the people that we really want involved are, you know, would include engineers, people that we want to make the best building possible for the best value and the best day-to-day operation, just smart things to do, people that have been through it before. You know, we have a great architect firm, but we will bring in some people from the community that can help with this thing and help us avoid pitfalls or help us do smart things for the future to build the best program building that we can. And then the once we break ground, it's sort of like around that time will be the third phase, which I guess we'd call like the design phase, where you're getting into the more nitty-gritty details of colors of the wall and where cabinets should be, and certainly teachers and administrators would be involved there, and just trying to make sure that we do things right. The second and third phase don't really align perfectly with the other 2 vice chairs, but the other 2 vice chairs would be Vanessa, who will be heading finance this year, and then Mike, who will be heading facilities. So whereas, you know, community members that might have certain expertise, they may come and go with these phases. I can imagine that people that love marketing, you know, don't want to listen to engineers talk about structures. But the people on the board here and many of the members will see the whole thing through. And for people that I've talked to about this thus far, especially people on this board, even if they're not on this board, they're willing to the degree possible, see this thing through to groundbreaking and potentially 3 or 4 years out to ribbon cutting, which will help with continuity. So that's my thought, and those 3 vice chairs are going to be important to sort of be expected experts in certain areas, certainly in finance, and I will lean on Mike and Vanessa collectively to sort of spend time on, especially like the environmental stuff. If we aim to build this as a net neutral sort of building, Mike has a lot of experience there, and we're going to have to see what smart things we can do as far as rounding up grants and this and that. So I don't have every last detail nailed down. I have talked to some community members that, at least for phase 1, that have expertise in marketing, and some of them have committed. I still have some conversations to have. Most of those recommendations came from the town council members or select board members or administration here, Jeff. Often many, some of the names came up from many different directions. I know I got some recommendations during conversations here when we talked about committees, and that came up. So I've reached out to a lot of them. I'm positive, again, like any committee, that not everybody will be happy, and but we'll try to include as many voices as we can. So I guess that's the gist of it. So tonight we need to approve the forming of the committee. I guess essentially approve those phases and see if you guys agree with that logic. And then over the course of very soon, we'll form the committee members, including members of the community for at least phase 1. And, you know, again, I'll continue to take input on who do you think should be there, but I think it will be hard to keep the committee small enough sort of to be effective. Just if you include board members and administration, it's already, 10 people. And so we just have to be cognizant of that. Thoughts, comments? I know we've been over most of this before at the retreat.
Jason, I have
Go ahead.
Generally fully supportive. The only thing is just in terms of, so I have one very specific thing that we talked about it, just ensuring that there's an expert on early childhood on that committee. Just even thinking about the specific point of like where the pre-K classrooms are located in the structure. Like, are they next to the cafeteria? We're not like a play outdoor space. That wouldn't make sense if we're doing napping, things like that. Things that I don't know, but a person very close to me has pointed out multiple times. So just making sure that voice is there, I think that's really important, especially if we want to make sure that this is in center of excellence for early childhood education. So it's really important. The other point is, again, just in terms of what we're voting on. I'm a little confused exactly what we're voting on. So how you described it, I'm supportive of that, but I just want to make sure when we actually vote on it, that we can be as clear as possible. It's something where we want to make a motion to approve a primary school committee charged with a multi-phase process that takes on the marketing, construction, and development of the project, something along those lines. I just think we should be pretty explicit in the motion.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being pedantic, but
no, I think that's important. It's really up to you guys. We can just form the committee, but I think it does make sense to probably form and define those phases now. I think the first phase is logical to call it communications or marketing. I don't care. I think the last phase being phase 3, I think design is a logical name for it. I really don't know about the middle one. You could call it engineering or structural. I'm fine with whatever, and whoever wants to make the motion, I'm fine with nailing that down, so long as we don't have to staff each of those phases at this point, the phase 1 being the most important at this point. So what should we call phase 2?
So I feel like we're trying to hammer out something on a committee. It's like we approved to get the equity committee, and then everything got hammered out thereafter. So I'm not sure why we have to get into the weeds with the details of the subcommittees.
I don't think
once we know we need a planning board committee. But do we need to get those details? Like, I feel like we don't need to get those details.
All right.
We've
so
got the committee.
Just
and
3
then-
phases?
Then you've got the people on the board that are going to go to the committees, and then we can figure out from there exactly what we need.
So you want to just define formation, or the motion you think should be formation of the committee and a 3-phased plan for the project?
Yes.
And we don't have to name the phases at this point?
Yeah, I don't feel
Okay.
like I don't feel like we're there yet to name the phases without having a little bit more information on someone who has an expertise.
Sure.
On what phases that are involved.
Sounds reasonable, yeah.
But I could be overstepping.
Yep, no, I think that's fine.
I think we also need to specify the type of committee in the wording. That's a special ad hoc committee.
Okay.
That's a really good point, Vanessa. That's the first meeting or two of the committee to basically explicitly lay out what that multi-phase process is, rather than us doing it here.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. We could, in the motion, list things like that deals with communication structure and design, among other issues, if we wanted to. But I don't feel like we need to. I think it's pretty obvious, given the makeup of what the committee is going to be, that we will deal with those things. So I think being more general makes a lot of sense. You have pivoted my opinion. Thank you, Vanessa.
Sorry.
Okay, so if somebody is comfortable making a motion?
I wrote one down, unless somebody else wants to do it. Please.
No.
Okay. Make a motion to create an ad hoc building committee charged with a multi-phase process.
The new primary school building
Okay,
committee.
I revised. I make a motion to create an ad hoc committee on the new primary school building charged with a multi-phase process.
Second.
Can I ask one question about that? I know there's other things that are being included in the referendum other than the primary school, but this is specifically focused on the primary school. I just want to better understand.
Yeah.
I think that the MIW renovations in particular, that probably is something that could be dealt with in the facilities committee, the existing facilities committee.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think so, but if you push back, if you disagree.
No, I was just tying in my mind to what the referendum was, which is, obviously we're going to have to do reconfigurations, but this is specifically about the new school. I
think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. The renovations that happen at MIW, I had sort of assumed would come under facilities.
I would
but in this motion, I don't think it addresses that, so we could do whatever down the road.
Okay.
That's a much smaller scale.
Right.
Certainly they're tied together, but, yep. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, seeing.
Who was the second?
Who was the second? Vanessa?
I was.
Yeah,
Thank
okay,
you.
that's what I thought. All right, sorry. Okay, all in favor? Okay, all opposed? None, unanimous. Okay, thank you. So moving on to Jeff's strategic priorities that he presented, we need to approve those. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the strategic plan.
Thank you, Kim.
Priorities, sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christina. Okay, discussion on the matter. Go ahead, Ann.
I just want to make sure that the strategic priorities include, as we had talked about at the last board meeting of last school year, to develop an equity and belonging plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's up to, that is implied in the strategic priorities, that's part of it, under responsible and involved citizen. Yep.
Further comments, concerns, discussion, questions? Okay.
I'll only,
Go ahead, Jared.
this is not a request to change the plan in any way, but I'll just chime in on one thing. For priority 4, skills for the 21st century, I see a lot of plans that talk about turning everyone into leaders, and it'd be terrific if every single graduate goes on to become a leader. It's also really important in life to be a really good team member and be able to work well with others and be a good listener in addition to a communicator. So I would just ask that the school keep that in mind. That's, it seems increasingly important to me to be able to work well with others as a team to be successful.
I would agree. We actually had we convened years ago a business roundtable, probably 6-7 years ago, and the business leaders that came to that roundtable with educators sat at the same table as board members were part of that at the time, told us the content's important. However, more important is we need people that can work together. That's what we need more of that. We need people that can collaborate. We can teach and train as much as we can. We just need people to work together. So that is definitely a skill that the state of Maine, through these as well, has talked about that a lot, the collaborative piece. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Others? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, so so that our tech guys don't have to stay around forever, I'm going to move the 6E to the very bottom of the agenda, and we'll do that as the last item, if there's no objections.
D and E, or just E?
So D has been canceled because Scott is sick.
Oh.
He got the COVID after 2 years of never getting it. So he's
Bummer. Okay.
sick. So, and he was a big part of that. And I'm actually quite bummed. We're going to kick it out 2 weeks, and we'll do it on the 19th.
Yep, on the
Yep.
19th.
And it's an important one. I'm bummed we can't do it, but Scott's a big piece of that. So
Is there a time sooner we can do it?
I'm happy to entertain that, but Jeff.
So we only have 10 days or 9 days between board meetings this time.
Okay.
And just given Scott's schedule at this point, and I've had it as well, and I know it takes sometimes,
Yeah.
for people of our age, a little bit longer. I don't want to imply that he might be ready.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So,
Notating.
Hopefully in 10 days, right?
Yes. He'll be ready though next Tuesday.
yes, but the Tuesday after, well,
Yeah.
yes, I know what you mean, yes.
Okay, so 6D was canceled, unfortunately, and 6E I'll move to the end. So we will move to Jeff's superintendent report, please.
Yes, superintendent's report for tonight. We, again, I think the principal's in part of this, but here's a photo of students on the very first minute of school, walking into Wilson School, and being greeted by staff and buses. It's kind of a rainy morning that day, and I was thinking, oh, please don't rain all day, and it actually stopped in time for most of the students not to get wet for the day, but it's exciting. We had new staff orientation. We had about 40 new staff members. There's a little bit more than 40 on the screen. However, we count anyone that is in a different role, completely changed a role in our district, or was a 1 year only and was hired back. We counted them as a new staff member. So we actually have probably 50 faces on here, but we end up hiring about 40 new staff since last year. We do a day-long orientation of all our new staff. They hear from me and other district administrators, and then they spend time with their building administrators before the school year starts. And then we had our staff back starting on the 26th, as I mentioned, and then 2 more days after that. This photo right here is all of our staff back in the same room, as I mentioned, and they are all, looks like they're waving, but they are throwing away a piece of paper with whatever they wrote on it that has something to do with a challenge or something they'd prefer not to continue thinking about from the last 2 years. So people had a chance to throw, we call it emptying the trash or throwing the trash out into a trash bucket and collecting all of the things that we don't want to continue with from the last 2 years and basically having a fresh start.
Did we collect those and tally them up?
No, we didn't. The custodians enjoyed that, though.
Can the board do it too?
Yes, if the board wants to do it, you can. Actually, I thought about inviting all the parents in and
Throwing it
just
at
have a
us.
nice big,
Throwing it at us.
have a nice big fest of throwing everything out. The Alice approach on the 26th, 29th, and 30th, team of law enforcement officers led by SRO Amy Owen provided Alice training for more than 400 of our staff. And from every school and department, we trained the operations staff first, actually the first day. This involved online training and overview, and then 2 hours of practicals, what we call practicals, which is hands-on scenarios. Many of the staff I had a chance to talk to, and then talk to administrators if they got feedback, and then we have a survey going out as well that we just put out a couple days ago for staff to give us their feedback about the training, but just the anecdotal stuff that I heard is that people were feeling like the training did what it was supposed to do, which was to give us the tools to think about and the mindset to think about things differently in terms of school safety. That lockdowns, traditional lockdowns are not the answer for school safety or safety in public places at all as the sole tool that we have. So we had a team of law enforcement officers. We had 5 people on Friday, 6 officers on Monday, and then we had 4 officers on Tuesday. And each was partnered with a staff member. We had 27 total staff groups that we trained, each with about 15 to 17 staff members in it. I don't think we exceeded 16. And then completed the Alice training prior to the first day of school. And so about 4.5 hours of training between all the components. I'd really like to say, just publicly, thank you Again, to Amy Owen, our SRO, Officer Ryan Pinchon, Officer Nick Descanio, Sergeant Tony Ridge, Chief Chip Rumsey, all of the Cumberland Police Department, and Sergeant Mike Pierce of the Yarmouth Police Department, all for their efforts in training all of our staff. It was a huge, huge undertaking. Also like to thank our staff members who were trained to assist the law enforcement officers. We had multiple groups being trained at once at any given time during those 3 days, up to 6 groups being trained. So Dawn Gray, Jackie Hayes, Jonna Mulligan, Aaron Pollock, Erica Serapis, Peter Scott, Jason LaRiviere, Pete Gillingham, Carol MacArthur, Corey Muncie, Mallory Orzachowski, Clara Evans, and myself all were paired up with law enforcement officers to help with that training. So it was, again, the 2-hour hands-on. We have an informational session for parents that will be held on September 22nd at 6 o'clock. And I know that there's been a lot of dates that have already gone out this month, not just this one, but others where there's conflicts with other meetings and other events. And I'd like to just say we apologize, but we also do not have any more time in the month. There's so many events going on right now as we get back into school that it's been very difficult to find nights or times that work for everybody. But that will be the night that we roll out the Alice info session. Chief Rumsey, excuse me, and Officer Owen will both be present to talk about the Alice approach, as well as the chief is going to be introducing that evening for any parents that are interested who attend that session, Project Child Safe, which is a gun safety program. These are free locks that are available to families that have firearms and want to make sure that they are secured. This is a program that the Safety and Security Committee of the district has been discussing as well for the last few months. The chief was able to get free locks from Project Child Safe, and we'll have them available if families are interested. They certainly don't have to have them, but we'll have quite a few of those on hand, and the chief will have information and literature as well available that evening for anyone that is interested. And then I just finally want to say we need ed techs and subs. We still have 11 openings for ed techs in our system, and we need substitutes. We have been hiring more permanent substitutes, and we've made some inroads with professional staff, but we still need educational technicians in our district, and we also need daily substitutes in our district, especially as the winter months come upon us and there's illness. We're going to need more folks that might be available for daily substituting. The information has been put out in a lot of places, but if you go to our website, www.msad51.org, we'd love for you to sign up. And I guess that wasn't my final slide. My final slide is football is back. And I know that's exciting for everyone because tomorrow night is the first home game of Greeley football. And I think it's been 3 or 4 years, at least maybe 4 years at this point, since we have fielded our own team at the high school. And this is the group of students who I met with, many of them last spring, along with David Shapiro. At one point, we ended up having multiple meetings. The students came forward. As you know, many of them came to a board meeting and really advocated. And I really want to say great job for the students for self-advocating. And I also want to take a second to thank the Falmouth School Department for being part of what I consider to be a really high-quality co-op program for football. I know a lot of people were skeptical of that co-op when we went into it because we didn't have enough students interested in our high school at the time. And I want to thank Falmouth for just graciously welcoming our students. We had several students that played for the co-op, Falmouth and Greeley, during those years, but we are ready to field our own team. And I know there's a lot of excitement about the first football game. As with everything else that we're doing, there's all kinds of athletics and clubs and activities and open events, open house events, and I think people are just really excited about what I'm hearing is there's just a lot of buzz about everything, and feeling like this is a great start to the year, and people are feeling a little bit like it's settling in. So that's my report.
Very good. Thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Kim.
Jeff, I apologize if you said this, for the parent information night for Alice, as you mentioned, there's a lot, and I'm thinking parents with babysitters for back to school nights and all of that. Will that be streamed? Will that be available for people to watch?
We haven't talked about doing it because we thought the in-person was really important for that.
Oh, sure.
And we had originally had thought, should we do it remotely? And then we were like, no, it's probably material that should be in person. And the chief, I know, was very, adamant as well. It should be in person. So I will bring that back and ask if that's something that we should be talking about or streaming. Some of it is sensitive material. We like to have people face to face, but
sure.
There's a lot of information as well that we've put out to parents in newsletters as well, and on our website if they want to access it. But I will get an answer for you.
Sorry, related to that, perhaps we could investigate if the recreation department, if we could provide childcare, or maybe through the PTO somehow.
Yeah, the PTO, I think they've helped us with that before. I'm not sure if they can, but I can certainly look into it.
Could we hold another session in October or November?
We could, but at that point, we would have already rolled it out to students, and we're trying to get in front of that before we do that.
I think that, yeah, totally, and I don't think we should wait to roll it out to students, but for those who missed it, to have an opportunity to then learn what's happening, I think it might be worth it.
I'll bring both those actually all three of those ideas back to, we have a team that's been working on this.
And also at the back to school nights, will that be addressed at all? Will teachers be promoting that, reminding parents to attend? Will they get any sort of a preview of it?
Probably not. I mean, we've put this out in different places, and we'll continue putting it out on social media, newsletters. It went out again tonight. I think it was in this newsletter this week. If not, it will be back in next week's newsletter. So we've been putting out as much as we can.
I was just thinking if the teachers, especially if they've been through the training, can say to the parents,
yes,
while they're there, to say you want to go to this, you
Right.
want to be there for that, do whatever you can to make it happen.
Right.
That would be much more impactful as a parent than an email.
Yeah, I'm sure teachers will have something to say about it. I know that, if they're asked at least, what it means. We have not gotten back. I mean, we've trained all of our staff, obviously, and we have a small group that we still have to train that missed it. But the other piece of that training is that we have not talked to our teachers about how we're rolling this out, because we do not have a complete plan yet. So Officer Owen is meeting with our leadership team on Tuesday, and that is the kind of the basis of that meeting, is to talk about what is our plan for rolling it out. We want to make sure it's developmentally appropriate, it's age appropriate, what it looks like at Mabel I. Wilson School being rolled out to students, and the kind of language we use with them looks obviously very, very different than high school. And in some of the links that we've put out are age appropriate ways that the Alice approach is signaled to students. So the way we talk about it with high school students, we do go through the whole process, which is including countering, which means countering an intruder that might come into your space. With primary school students, elementary students, we don't even talk about that. We don't talk about countering. Obviously, our staff understand that piece, but not our students.
Yeah.
So it depends on the developmental level of our students.
Oh.
Yeah. And that is going to be talked about at the informational session.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just want to add on to what Mike said, not only for convenience sake, run it again in October if you can, but also I think once the students have done it, there are going to be a lot more questions and concerns and interest from parents, so all the more reason to do it again.
Yep.
To address that. It's so different in many ways.
It is different. It's a very different approach than any of us were trained as students or adults.
I guess my last thought then too is, since we're still figuring out sort of what the rollout would look like, if it makes sense to have it rolled out not universally across the district at the same time, but if we started with the older grades, that would also then allow us to have, we could have some more staggered parent sessions and to be able to properly provide child care if we can for families at MIW. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think the staggered approach actually is a great idea. And I know that The way we're going to, without giving a lot of detail yet, because we haven't finished this yet, I already know that the way we're going to be approaching it at Mabel I. Wilson School and the way we roll it out with students is going to be a very different approach. It's going to take longer than it will at the other levels, just the way that we're planning it. And we'll be finalizing that. But I cannot promise childcare. It's very short notice for the meeting. That's another layer that we didn't discuss. But I will absolutely put out the live streaming piece, and I know that our wonderful tech people over here would be involved in that. So we'll look at that.
Okay, go ahead, Leanne.
I mean, I know that I'm very excited to have this parent night to learn more, and I think there's probably going to be a lot of interest. It's going to be in the GCA.
Yes. Yeah.
And are we going to plan for overflow?
We haven't usually had events where we have more than the 515 seats that are in there. So we were not planning for overflow.
Okay. Because if it's not going to be streamed, I mean, I can see people, if it, you can watch from.
It sounds
home.
like streaming is important. So that's something I'm going to certainly look into.
And I'm not advocating for such, but is there an option for parents to opt their children out of this training? It's going to come up, I'm sure.
So the way that the Alice approach is, there's really no opt-out. It's basically personal choice. Now, for younger students, it's not personal choice. It's following the teacher's lead. As kids get older, they're trained that they have some autonomy over their own safety, and if there really was an event, what would they do? And they're given a lot more tools and options. For younger students, I don't see opting out being something that we can say you can opt out of this. This is it's like a fire drill, it's like a safety drill, an evacuation drill. These are things that keep the entire school community safe. So we're not looking at opt-outs.
To that, I think that was a really important question. And I might be actually advocating for opt-outs but I don't think let me ask the question first because I'm babbling. Because my understanding of Alice is that we're pivoting away from the traditional lockdown effort. So we're not imposing lockdown practices on kids anymore, right? That's my understanding, and that's like one of the more better reasons for it is that in that situation where kids would have to go through lockdown practices, in that situation, I would definitely advocate for parents being allowed to opt their children out. But Alice is different, right?
So Alice is a multi-option approach. So the traditional lockdown that we all know about, maybe we should do a presentation for the board, quite frankly. But so the traditional approach is obviously students are hiding or securing in a room, and it's usually the same location in the room. When there's lockdown, the door is locked. If you can lock it, quickly, it's supposed to be done in quick time, and lights are out, shades are drawn. That's a traditional approach. We've all been through it. It's been decades of that since the 50s. This approach recognizes that basically based on all of the incidents that have happened over the last 25 years, that is not an effective approach. And that people need other options available to them. And that includes students and their teachers. There's been too many incidents in our country. And that's where Alice came from, is really this idea that sitting in a room and waiting for something to happen is not acceptable. And all the governmental agencies have now signed on to this, including Homeland Security, U.S. Secret Service, all of the law enforcement agencies, the National Police Chiefs Association, Sheriff's Association, all of them said, you can't keep doing this. It's not effective. It's not safe. And there's got to be other ways to deal with this. And people have to have other options. So when it's safe, get out. When it's not safe, barricade. We actually, part of the training, I was in several groups of practicals helping. And one of our groups opted to make sure that 2 people were designated as the adults and everybody else were the students in a primary level, which means the students just kind of stood there, waited for the teacher's direction. The teachers were the ones moving the tables before we had a mock invasion of the classroom, or intruder. And the amount of time that those adults were able to move the tables and barricade the room was very fast. People didn't think they could do it, but they did it. And that's kind of the visual that we're trying to help people with, help our teachers, our staff, our students. I think obviously at the info session we'll help our parents with it.
Yeah.
But it's a very different approach. And I know that this is a scary subject, but it's scarier if we don't address it. So it's something that our safety committee's looked at for 3 years and settled on it. But these are good suggestions. I think the live streaming piece, you know, I know there's I have some hesitation about live streaming because I don't know how much information we want streamed out about this. Obviously, anybody can go on the internet, find out information about live streaming, about Alice. But that's something I'll have to take back to the chief and Officer Owen, find out.
Maybe a licensing issue. They're pretty tight with their licensing.
As long as we're not duplicating, I think as long as we're just talking about it, not duplicating or showing a video without their permission. Yeah, I agree, it could be a license. But we'll have to talk to our expert tech person over there.
We certainly want to get the information out, but I also agree that maybe it loses some of its impact if it's not in person. But
yeah.
We'll see. Okay, other thoughts, questions of Jeff's superintendent report? Okay, moving on. We would normally do committee reports here. Does anybody want to add anything to any of that? Oh, I guess we could do the student reports. Yes. Take it away, Avery.
Student reports first?
Yes.
I'm honored.
Well, no.
Only.
Just the others are non-existent a little bit.
Just because we didn't have the committee stuff.
All right, great. Yeah, so for the seniors, it's the beginning of the end, and everyone's pretty happy about that. Yeah, it's good. Everyone's excited to have the Friday night under the lights football back, something to a sport that people actually care about.
Okay, move on.
And yeah, everyone's back at it, hard at work, figuring out how to skip their study hall. And yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Avery. Tommy.
Yeah, I would say that during the first week of school, the thing that I noticed most about my peers and the students in school would be just the kind of like camaraderie, and I would say the sense of being back is very nice, and everyone's excited to see friends' faces and stuff like that. I would also say that one thing that I particularly enjoyed, and some of my peers have also spoken to this, is getting to meet our new administrators that were here today, specifically Miss Hayes and Mr. Francis. And I would also say that the class meetings that we've been having have been very informative and helpful, and the juniors are very excited to get their own parking spots.
Yeah, I was going to say the juniors are getting quite a bit this year that didn't happen last year, Avery. They're also
welcome.
getting privileges already in the fourth quarter that are coming, so that's great. So it's your legacy, I suppose.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Tommy. Anybody else want to add anything for any of the committee reports? Okay. All right, so moving on to our catch-all of communications. So we have a request from the MSBA for a local delegate to attend the annual delegate assembly. So has anybody here ever been to that before? Ann, do you want to tell us what that's about?
So the state, the MSBA has a board that meets throughout the year, and they approve various motions. And so the representative would just be from someone from our district who is there voting either to approve or oppose the state agenda items.
Okay. And Jeff, you told me a little bit about this. It's usually a 2-day thing, right?
Yeah,
and-
it's in person this year. It was remote for a couple of years. It's actually a really great conference, and it has a lot of sessions that you can choose from. You can go for one day. You can go for 2 days. There are 2 days, Thursday and Friday. It's at the end of October, and it's very informative.
Yeah, the conference was really good. I will say, since I was the representative before, that there were some conference sessions that I was hoping that I could have attended that year that I wasn't able to, just because I was then in this other meeting. So just throwing that out there.
Okay. And are you sure it's in person? It says this year's delegate assembly scheduled virtually.
So I think the delegate assembly is virtual, but I believe the conference is still being planned as in person, if I
Okay.
remember correctly.
So, based on your recommendation, I'm kind of thinking I would attend the first day myself, but others can attend, and I don't have to be the delegate. So if somebody wants to be the delegate, they can, and any of us can attend. Is that right?
Yes. Anybody on the board, if they'd like to attend the conference 1 or 2 days, and you're interested in doing that, Fran will register you.
Okay.
Yeah, I really recommend that board members, if you're able to make it, if it works for your schedule, there are some really great sessions, and just being able to meet other school board members throughout the state is also helpful.
Yeah, and there's nice food. They have lots of food. So.
Okay. What are the dates? No.
Good question.
And if this, the dates, are the same, since that the delegate thing was in, it's virtual, so is that a different date then maybe? Because you said, and when you went, there was a conflict because they were both in person happening at the same time?
Yeah, we'll get you a little bit more information and send it out through email to the whole board. I'll have Fran send that out tomorrow. Actually, she's not here tomorrow. We'll send it out Monday.
Yeah.
I know I put it on my calendar. It's October 27th and 28th.
Yes.
Okay.
I just didn't know about the virtual meeting date, but it's probably in that letter you shared.
All right, so I don't think we need to decide that tonight. Anybody that wants to go, let Jeff know, and I'll plan to go the first day, assuming I have no conflicts. And if somebody else wants to go and be the delegate, fine, just let me know. And if by default nobody else is there, then I guess I'll do it if I'm there.
I also wonder, relatedly, I mean, so that there was a regional meeting this evening for the MSBA, and I'm wondering, the time that I've been on the board, we haven't had anyone who's kind of been following along with those meetings as they're happening. We've just been attending at the conference, and I think it's worth considering whether we want to change that.
So, do you know what type of commitment that would be? Like,
Offhand, I'm not sure, but I can reach out. I know our regional representative from RSU 5, Mara Pillsbury, I can reach out to her.
okay. So I guess somebody that wants to do that, speak up.
I might be interested once I learn more about the commitment.
Okay.
And I am also, depending on.
Yep. That'll
This
be
is
good.
a ridiculously nitpicky item. Is it MSBA or MSMA?
Yeah, yes.
Both.
Of course it is.
It's
Why
both.
wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
So MSMA is the umbrella of MSBA and MSSA, which is the Superintendent Association. They're both housed under the same umbrella, but both have different, obviously, presidents and missions.
And so when we say the board delegate to the MSMA conference?
No,
or is the
BA.
MSBA? Okay.
So the delegate is just for the School Boards Association.
Okay.
It does not involve the Superintendent's Association. Superintendents have their own, issues that we deal with in our own conference day that we have. We also attend these 2 days, but we have a separate day just for superintendents.
I don't know that anyone is going to care, but when we approve the minutes, will that be reflected that it's MSBA versus MSMA?
I think,
I guess I may be the only person.
I will tell you it's interchangeable, obviously, because it's under the same umbrella. So either way, it won't.
Just so
it
the
won't
person doesn't go to the
change
wrong
anything.
conference. Okay.
Yeah, it won't change anything, because it is the MSMA conference, but it's the MSBA delegate assembly. So that's the differentiation.
Okay.
Yeah, and it looks like the virtual is Saturday, October 22nd, so there isn't the overlap this year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody can go, I guess just send an email to me and Jeff, and if you want to be the delegate, we can work that out if there's more than one person. And then if somebody wants to put some time into figuring out being the delegate for the year and what sort of commitment that would be, you know, we can work that out. That would be good, I guess, to get reports back on sort of that sort of thing. Stay connected to the state, so. Okay, any other thoughts on that before we move on? Okay. So before we go into executive session, last item here is board committee assignments. You all have seen the draft. I've emailed with many of you and had discussions with many of you, and during public comment went over some of that. Do we want to discuss that more? Are there specifics? I'm happy on your personal assignments to go through that. You know, I don't feel like that's appropriate to do here. But generally, anything?
I have a general question.
Go ahead.
BDE, which is what governs the board standing committees, where in that does it address parent committee assignments?
I don't believe it
You mean
does.
public?
Jeff?
No, so that policy is just for board members.
Right.
However, it can be at the discretion of the chair to appoint others to a committee. So to serve on those, it doesn't
Okay.
specifically say that, but it doesn't say it doesn't. You can't
Okay.
either.
Yeah, because I didn't see that.
Yep.
It kind of seems like that's a returning topic. It was the topic last year of who gets appointed to these ad hoc committees from the public. So maybe that should be something on the policy committee to just have something clearer for everybody in the community to realize it's.
I would agree.
Last year was the same topic that came up. Why does the chair get to choose this? And the community doesn't have the involvement. It came up again tonight. So it just seems like if it's going to come up every year, maybe we should create a little bit more structure around it to be clear so we can answer to the public and the chairs aren't put on the spot of their directive from a policy that's there.
Reducing ambiguity is obviously good and what we aim for in policies. Of course, you know, it's a double-edged sword. You tighten things up too much and then you can't do anything, but I agree. You know, it would reduce everybody knows what's going on and
Because, there is a very clear statement that says the board chair will appoint members to a standing committee from among the membership of the board, but it doesn't go beyond that.
I would have to say that past practice has been that there have been chairs who have appointed others to even standing committees, but certainly ad hoc committees, regular committees have had different, stakeholders on those committees. Again, at the discretion of the chair, and it's been past practice to do that.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm new, so.
Yeah, no, and some of it, you read a policy and it's like, where is it? But it's past practice. It's been handled that way for years.
Well, and though the Equity Leadership Steering Committee also just had a little bit of a different, its origin story, it was a little bit different too, in the fact that it wasn't originally a board committee. So when it was first developed, it wasn't chosen by the board chair. It was a joint effort in coming up with that committee membership. That being said, now that it is under the board's control, I think I would like to make a motion that the roster be amended so that co-chairs for the committee are board members, and I would recommend then that Kim Vine replace Tim Valenti for co-chair. And I would also encourage us adding Principal Francis. Principal Hoffman, when he was here, he was a really great addition to that committee, and just knowing Principal, that Principal Francis has an interest in, getting into some of these other community building and responding to the anti-Semitism, I think it'd be helpful to reach out.
I'm not going to accept that motion. I think it conflicts with BDE. So I hear what you're saying, but I think we'd have to rewrite that policy. Jeff, do you
Where's
wanna
the
chime in
conflict?
on that?
I mean, I think we'd have to go and look and see if I mean, I know anyone can make a motion, whether the motion would be able to carry. I'd have to look at the policy more in order to do that. I mean, the way the policy is written is the chair does appoint.
Okay. Further discussion on committees in general.
Sorry, you said there's a conflict. Where was there a conflict?
I believe that what the motion that was just proposed conflicts with our own policies. So I'm not going to accept that motion.
I think that is the case, that we as a board can't approve the composition of a committee. That's solely
Okay.
the discretion of the chair.
Okay. And a co-chair can be a non-board member.
We have precedent for that.
Oh, we did. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Again, I'm new.
Okay. Other comments on committee assignments? And I'm happy to have conversations on your personal assignments, some of which I've already had.
I think Anne's idea is a good one, so it's worth considering, especially Principal Francis. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Where do we put him on? He's on
policy.
Policy, which, you know, being that a lot of the issues that come up originally from the high school, we thought that was good. And
yeah, and I'd like a chance to talk to our administrators before we appoint them to committees. Because
Jeff should be on all committees.
Because I did actually talk to Mr. Francis about that committee, and he had somebody else in mind that he thought would be great for the committee, and Jason and I talked earlier about that.
yeah, you may have noticed there was one staff to be determined, and that was based on Jeff having to have those conversations. I did speak specifically to Mari, who was on the previous committee, and so did Jeff. So that is one administrator. Okay.
I have another item.
Go ahead.
So the Prince Memorial Library, along with, it's a joint effort with one of the high school English teachers, has a race and equity book group that I've participated in, although I've been somewhat of a dormant member over the last 3 months or so. It was me and Jennifer Stewart as part of the board participated in it. It's a phenomenal group. And Jennifer's not on the board anymore. So if people are interested in participating in that, it's basically a book is chosen each month. And there's a wonderful discussion with people from the community. It's usually about anywhere between 10 and sometimes 20, but mostly around 10. 10 to 15 are on those discussions. It's usually virtual. No, well, not usually. It's always virtual, at least. So I just wanted to raise that up. The first meeting is this coming Wednesday, which I can't make because I'll be out of town. But just wanted to put that out there. Folks from the community, and if there are other board members who want to join. Tommy, I know you've been part of it. Hopefully it wasn't just because your mom dragged you in and you're actually interested. Yeah, no, it's really good work by Kelly Greenlee at the library, Jackie Young at the high school. Just really excellent work.
Thank you. So who should they contact? Mike, you have the information
They
on
can
that?
contact me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Can I clarify?
Jeff, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify the committee piece because I just had a chance to look at your bylaws. So I'll just read it, and I think it's important for the board to just know this. But it's for other board committees, this is the way your bylaws is worded. The following other committees of the board are hereby authorized, and members of the board shall be appointed by the board chair to these committees on an annual basis as needed. Other representation from the staff or community may be consented to by the board. Additional other committees can be added by the vote of the board. But I think it implies that that comes from the chair of the board. And I know that this has come up in the past. As Vanessa, you mentioned that this continues to come up. And I think, some clarification about appointments. But just to make it clear by policy and by your bylaws, all of these appointments initiate from the board chair.
Yeah, sorry, I think when I had maybe reviewed that, I wasn't reading it the same way, so I just wanted to bring it up. And Jason, I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to mention it beforehand. I tried to get here sooner.
No problem. Kim, go ahead.
I just had a question about the environmental committee. Do we need to approve that as a board?
So we've got a few things that we need to do. Obviously, that doesn't exist yet.
Sorry, I'm pointing randomly, gesticulating. I was just thinking we could probably do that next meeting.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe next meeting we can talk about that, and also we need to sunset and have the discussion around the other two committees that we've discussed in the past. We don't need to go through it right now. And I actually had a great conversation with Mark Segrist today, and they have a climate action plan that Cumberland has. And I'm wondering, you guys can chime in, but I'm wondering about if we somehow maybe dovetail with that instead of having our own committee. I'm not sure. No. Yes.
Well, so there's the climate action plan of the town that was spearheaded by the council and a couple members of the community. Danny Gallaudet's been a leader in all that work.
Yep.
Danny presented to us about that, and I've also talked to him, and he's presented in other forms about it. It's great. And so the town of Cumberland has a climate action plan. It's not a standing committee of sorts. So I don't think it would work, but I think the work of the committee, having its vision and operations that reflect that plan, because it's very good, makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Okay.
And potentially like integrating community members, having somebody from that committee, I guess there is a committee related to that. Maybe there's a climate action committee, but having somebody who is from there as part of our committee could make sense. But I don't know if we would want to. I think we should have our own committee is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. The purpose of Mark reaching out to me was to talk about the new school building, and he had recommended and sent to Jeff and I that Denny be on the new school building committee because he spends a lot of time, is very passionate about the climate and environmental stuff, and puts a lot of time into knowing the various grants and options that are out there. So, you know, I've put him on the list, and you know, I don't know if that's phase 1, but certainly phase 2, maybe partly phase 1 as well. So that was the purpose of his call, mostly. Okay. Anything else under communication that people want to bring up, future topics for discussion or whatever? This is our catch-all. Okay. So
I think Leanne had some.
So when are the committees made public?
let's say early next week. How's that? There are a couple things I'm waiting on for Jeff. There's one question outstanding, and then, which are just a couple of tiny changes, and then we'll make it final. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, we typically post our committees on the website.
Yep.
Okay.
That's typically what we do.
Okay. All right. Okay, moving on. So we've got to still have our executive session, so I will entertain a motion for item 6E.
I make the motion that we enter executive session to discuss property acquisition pursuant to state statute MRSA 4056D.
Thank you, Ann.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Unanimous? Okay. Thank you.
Where are we doing executive sessions? Over here.
We're probably going to just stay here. They're going to shut down.
Yeah, we probably should get rid of them, or because are you guys going to shut down?
Yes, peripherally.